In the dead of night over the Black Sea, a Russian landing craft carrying 30 troops sliced through the dark waters, completely oblivious to the invisible predator tracking their every move from miles above. For nearly half an hour, a Turkish-made drone had been watching, waiting, calculating. In less than 2 minutes, what seemed like a routine military operation would explode into one of the most pivotal moments of the entire conflict, revealing secrets that Moscow desperately wanted to keep hidden. This is the story of how a single missile strike exposed a covert operation and changed the course of the war. It was just after 4 in the morning, local time, on June 24th, 2025. The Cerna-class landing craft was making its way toward the western shore of Kherson, its crew confident in the darkness that concealed them. But high above, at 18,000 feet, a Bayraktar TB2 drone had been silently observing their movements. This wasn't some makeshift commercial quadcopter jury-rigged for combat. The TB2 represented Turkey's sophisticated answer to America's Predator drone, a flying surveillance platform engineered to stay airborne for an incredible 27 hours straight, hunting targets with mechanical patience that no human pilot could match. The drone had launched from a concealed position near Mykolaiv at 2 in the morning, when the Black Sea was nothing but an endless expanse of darkness, and Russian radar operators were struggling to stay alert during the quietest hours of their shift. Powered by a Rotax 912 engine, the same reliable power plant found in civilian light aircraft, the TB2 cruised through the night sky at a leisurely 70 knots. There was no need to rush when you had the entire night to conduct your hunt, and patience in warfare often separated the victorious from the defeated. The drone's flight path to the target area was a masterclass in exploiting gaps in enemy radar coverage. Rather than taking the most direct route, which would have been tactically foolish, the TB2 traced a carefully calculated path that kept it at least 50 kilometers away from known Russian S-300 air defense sites. The Ukrainian operators had learned through painful experience that while the TB2's radar cross-section was remarkably small, roughly equivalent to a large bird, getting overconfident around Russian air defenses was the fastest way to transform a $5 million aircraft into an expensive pile of wreckage scattered across the countryside. By 3:30 in the morning, the TB2 had reached its designated patrol station, a rectangular box of controlled airspace measuring 40 kilometers long and 20 kilometers wide, strategically positioned to monitor the main maritime approaches to Kherson. From its vantage point at 18,000 feet, the drone's Wescam MX-15 sensor ball could observe everything happening below. This Canadian-built electro-optical system was far more than just a high-resolution camera. It was a sophisticated multispectral imaging suite capable of reading a vehicle's license plate from 20 kilometers away when operating in infrared mode. The cold waters of the Black Sea became a revealing canvas where any heat source stood out dramatically, like a flashlight beam cutting through the darkness of a coal mine. The operator, seated in a ground control station that looked more like an advanced gaming setup than a traditional military command post, settled in for what could easily become hours of monitoring empty water. The TB2 flew its programmed pattern autonomously while the operator carefully monitored the sensor feed, methodically switching between visual and thermal imaging every few minutes to ensure nothing escaped detection. This was the harsh reality of modern drone warfare. 99% consisted of mind-numbing boredom, while the remaining 1% delivered pure, heart-pounding adrenaline. But on this particular night, those odds were about to shift dramatically in favor of action. At 3:47 in the morning, something immediately captured attention on the thermal display. A distinct hot spot was moving westward at approximately 30 knots, leaving behind a warm wake that glowed brilliant white against the frigid black waters. The operator quickly zoomed in, and the thermal blob resolved into the unmistakable profile of a Project 11770 Cerna-class landing craft. These 26-meter vessels were the reliable workhorses of Russian amphibious operations, fast and shallow draft boats specifically designed to deliver 92 fully equipped troops, or even a main battle tank directly onto hostile beaches. But what made this particular contact especially significant was a crucial detail. It wasn't traveling alone. The TB2's advanced sensors detected two additional vessels following approximately 5 kilometers behind, forming a convoy. This tactical formation meant this wasn't merely a routine patrol or a standard supply run. The operator immediately tagged all 3 contacts and began recording every pixel of footage, understanding that this intelligence might prove critically important in the hours and days ahead. The lead Cerna was maintaining impressive speed, its waterjet propulsion system allowing it to plane across the calm sea surface like a performance speedboat. Through the thermal imager, the operator could clearly observe hotspots scattered across the deck, human heat signatures that he methodically counted. At least 24 were visible on deck, with probably more personnel packed inside the hull. These weren't ordinary sailors based on their movement patterns and equipment silhouettes. Everything suggested these were combat-ready infantry, preparing for something significant. By 4:10 in the morning, the tactical picture had crystallized with disturbing clarity. The convoy was heading directly toward a specific stretch of beach located 8 kilometers west of Kherson, the exact same location where Ukrainian ground forces had reported suspicious activity during the previous week. The operator reached for a secure phone. Whatever operation the Russians were planning, they were about to receive company they absolutely couldn't see coming from their position at sea level. At 4:15, after 27 minutes of patient stalking and careful observation, the Ukrainian operator received 3 words that would irrevocably seal the landing craft's fate: cleared to engage. The authorization came directly from the 383rd UAV Brigade's Operations Center, where senior officers had been monitoring the identical sensor feed on their own displays. This wasn't a decision made hastily or lightly. Every MAML missile carried a price tag of $70,000, and the TB2 only carried 4 of these precision weapons beneath its wings. More importantly, attacking at this location would definitively reveal that Ukraine maintained active drone coverage this far south, potentially compromising future surveillance operations in the region. But the tactical value of eliminating that convoy before it could reach Kherson's vulnerable beaches far outweighed the operational security risks. The operator immediately began configuring his attack run. The Cerna was now 15 kilometers from shore, still maintaining its steady 30-knot speed and holding a consistent course of 330 degrees. In the unforgiving world of aerial warfare, predictable targets were effectively dead targets. He selected the lead vessel for engagement, following the classic tactical principle: eliminate the lead element first to create maximum confusion and disrupt the enemy's command structure. The TB2's autopilot suddenly received new flight instructions, breaking from the established patrol pattern to reposition for optimal weapons release geometry. The drone banked smoothly to the left, beginning a wide arc that would position it directly behind the Russian convoy. This careful maneuvering wasn't simply about achieving weapons range. The MAML missile performed most effectively when fired along the target's axis of movement, minimizing the course corrections needed during its terminal flight phase. Through his monitor, the operator watched the Russian vessel grow progressively larger as the distance closed. The Westcam's 15 times optical zoom brought him close enough to observe individual crew members moving on deck. Most were clustered near the stern, probably attempting to stay out of the biting wind. This was a classic tactical mistake. Bunching up personnel only made the incoming missile's job significantly easier. He could now distinguish their equipment in detail: tactical vests, combat helmets, assault rifles. This was definitely not a routine supply run. These were combat troops preparing for offensive operations. The MAM-L, an acronym in Turkish that translates to Smart Micro-Munition, represented a genuine marvel of weapons miniaturization. Weighing just 22 kilograms, it packed a devastating 10-kilogram warhead capable of punching through light armor, or, in this particular case, transforming a boat's superstructure into shredded metal confetti. The missile employed semi-active laser homing technology, meaning the TB2 would need to maintain its laser designator precisely on target throughout the entire flight. At 8 kilometers, the minimum range for an accurate shot, that meant 43 seconds of perfectly steady flying while the missile homed in on the reflected laser energy. At 4:30 in the morning, something changed dramatically aboard the Russian boat. Through the thermal imager, the operator observed crew members rapidly moving toward the bow, setting up what appeared to be a heavy machine gun mount. Were they expecting trouble, or was this simply standard operating procedure when approaching a potentially hostile shoreline? Either way, the operator had no intention of waiting around to discover the answer. He conducted a final systematic check of all systems. Laser designator, fully operational. Missile status, green across the board. Weather conditions, nearly ideal, with less than 5 knots of wind at altitude. The only minor concern was a bank of clouds moving in from the west, but at current speeds they wouldn't become a factor for another hour. He carefully designated the target, placing the targeting crosshairs directly on the Cerna's bridge structure. The laser rangefinder instantly calculated the distance, 12.7 kilometers, and steadily closing. Still too far for an optimal shot. The MAM-L could theoretically reach out to 14 kilometers when released from this altitude, but accuracy degraded significantly beyond 8 kilometers. He would wait patiently for the perfect moment. The minutes seemed to crawl by with agonizing slowness. 11 kilometers, 10 kilometers. The Russian boat maintained its unwavering course, completely oblivious to the technological Grim Reaper hovering 18,000 feet directly above them. At 4:42, the range indicator hit 8 kilometers. The engagement envelope was absolutely perfect. But something nagged persistently at the operator's tactical instincts. Those other 2 boats, still trailing 5 kilometers behind, suddenly began changing course. One broke north, while the other swung south. They were establishing a perimeter. This wasn't just a simple landing operation. This was clearly the opening phase of a coordinated major operation. The operator understood immediately. It was now or never. Whatever the Russians were planning, it needed to end right here, right now. At 4:46, the TB2 operator squeezed the trigger on his control stick, but instead of the immediate weapon release he expected, his screen flashed an alarming warning. Laser malfunction. Recalibrate. His heart rate spiked instantly. The Cerna was now just 7 kilometers from shore and beginning to decelerate for its final approach. Every passing second mattered critically. He quickly cycled the designator off and back on, employing the classic troubleshooting technique that somehow worked on everything from smartphones to million-dollar military hardware. The system ran through its automated self-test sequence. 5 seconds passed, 10 seconds. Finally, laser operational. He immediately redesignated the target, but something about this landing craft's profile continued to bother him. The deck appeared far too crowded for a standard 30-man infantry unit. Those extra crates strapped securely to the sides weren't normal military equipment. But in 43 seconds, their mysterious contents would reveal the complete story. At 4:47, the MAM-L dropped cleanly from the TB2's hardpoint. The missile's aerodynamic fins deployed immediately, and its semi-active seeker head began searching for the laser energy reflecting off the designated target. Inside the weapon, a compact computer rapidly calculated the engagement parameters. Current altitude 18,000 feet, target 7.8 kilometers downrange, estimated impact time 43 seconds. What the operator didn't know yet was that this landing craft represented merely the lead element of something much larger and far more sinister. The explosion about to occur would reveal intelligence that the Russians had desperately wanted to keep hidden from Western eyes. 28 seconds to impact. The Serna-class craft maintained its course at 15 knots, completely unaware that a guided missile was falling from the sky at 250 meters per second. Through his screen, the operator could observe Russian troops moving casually on deck. Some were smoking and talking, others methodically checking their equipment. They had absolutely no idea these were their final moments alive. The TB2's laser held rock steady on the bridge structure. Even the slightest wobble would send the missile catastrophically off course, but the drone's stabilized gimbal kept the beam locked on target like a precision sniper scope. 15 seconds to impact. A Russian sailor on deck suddenly pointed skyward. He'd spotted either the drone silhouette or the incoming missile contrail. The operator could see him shouting frantically, waving his arms in warning. But physics doesn't negotiate or show mercy. At a closure rate of 185 kilometers per hour, his desperate warning shouts were already far too late to save anyone. The thermal imager showed Russians scrambling desperately across the deck. Some dove for cover behind equipment crates, while others futilely tried to bring weapons to bear, as if small arms fire could somehow stop a guided missile in terminal descent. But the operator noticed something profoundly odd. Several troops were frantically throwing cases overboard into the sea. Why would they be doing that instead of trying to save themselves or take cover? 5 seconds. The TB2's camera automatically zoomed in to maximum magnification, capturing every detail in pristine 4K resolution. Ukrainian intelligence officers monitoring the live feedback at headquarters leaned forward intently. Those weren't standard naval infantry troops on deck. The digital camouflage pattern was distinctly different from normal Russian uniforms. The equipment cases bore unusual markings that definitely were not standard issue. Whatever this classified mission was, it had just become Ukraine's most important intelligence discovery of the entire year. Impact. The MAM-L struck perfectly amidships at 4:48. The primary explosion tore violently through the hull, the 10-kilogram warhead specifically designed to penetrate light armor, making devastatingly short work of the Serna's thin steel plating. But watch carefully what happened at the 1.3-second mark after impact. Those weren't fuel tanks exploding in a normal fire. Those were specialized demolition charges cooking off, sending distinctive white-hot jets of thermite screaming into the night sky like deadly fireworks. The Serna wasn't carrying troops for a conventional beach landing operation. It was transporting a highly trained sabotage team equipped with infrastructure demolition equipment. As the stricken landing craft broke catastrophically in half, the TB2 captured something that made the operator immediately zoom in for closer examination. Waterproof cases were floating free from the burning wreckage, each one clearly marked with Cyrillic letters. In Moscow, someone was about to experience a very bad morning, knowing that in just a few hours they would likely be falling out of a window due to what had just catastrophically failed. As burning debris rained down onto the Black Sea, emergency radio frequencies exploded with frantic Russian traffic, but it wasn't rescue operations they were desperately coordinating. The TB2 operator kept his camera locked firmly on target. Those secondary explosions weren't ammunition cooking off in a normal pattern. The distinctive white-hot jets screamed one thing: demolition charges. Whatever the classified mission had been, it packed enough thermite explosive to level critical infrastructure. Within 90 seconds, both trailing vessels executed crash turns back toward Crimea. No rescue attempt, no search pattern, just maximum speed flight away from the disaster zone. That tactical decision told its own revealing story. Operational security trumped saving their own people drowning in the cold water. The strategic fallout was immediate and far-reaching. Intercepted burst transmissions revealed emergency recalls being issued. Satellite imagery subsequently showed vessels hastily returning to Sevastopol. Within 1 week, Russian special operations activity in the western Black Sea region simply stopped entirely. 30 Russian special operators had trained intensively for months. Their critical mission ended in mere seconds. The single missile strike had not only eliminated a tactical threat, but had exposed an entire covert operation, forcing Moscow to completely reassess their strategic approach in the region. Intelligence gathered from the wreckage would provide insights that would influence Ukrainian defensive planning for months to come, proving that sometimes one perfectly timed strike can accomplish what entire battalions cannot.